Welcome to the Real Estate Masters Podcast, where we interview the top names in the real estate game. If you want to grow your real estate business, see more podcasts, or get free resources, go to www.remcommunity.com. The only podcast that allows you to directly connect with the guests and many of the highest level names in the real estate game.
You are in for a treat with our next guest. Do me a favor, subscribe to the podcast, leave us a review, and don't forget to go to remcommunity.com to connect with some of the highest level real estate professionals in the United States through our community and through our high level masterminds. Let's go.
Welcome to today's episode. I'm super excited to have our guest today. This is Tony Javier, your host. We have today Gary Boomershine, who you guys probably know the name. Founder of realestateinvestor.com. He's been around since right around when I started. He started in 2004. I started in 2001. So this should be a really good conversation because both of us have been through a lot in this real estate investing world in the last 15 to 20 years. So Gary, what is going on, man? It's good to have you on the show.
Yeah, man, I'm super excited. I'm also having you on our show, and gosh, what a wealth of knowledge. So I love talking to a couple of OGs, original gangsters. It was actually Rafael Vargas that came up to me and actually said, "Hey, you're one of the OGs." I'm like, "What's an OG?" He's like, "Well, he's been around for 20 years." I guess I start to get gray hair, and I look around. I'm like one of the older guys in the room. When I started, I was one of the younger guys. So now this should be a lot of fun, Tony. Super excited to deliver back as much value to your group as I can.
Yeah, absolutely, man. So I'm interested in talking with you for many reasons. One is I used to follow you a long time ago when you first started your education and coaching and teaching and all that kind of stuff. So it's good for you to be on my show and for me to be on yours. It's an honor. And then your story is pretty similar to mine. The fact that, we own a lot of businesses, we do a lot of things, but we are super dedicated to like automation, leverage, and figuring out how to create a real business. Because as you said before I hit record, is a lot of people get into business to create lifestyle, to create freedom, to make money. And what happens? They're typically still living paycheck to paycheck. They're working 60 to 80 hours in their business, and they can't figure out how to get out of their own way. So let's just jump in. You've got some great principles. You've got the Freedom Code that you wrote, which is a great book you can tell about people about here in a little bit. So 2004, just tell us, I guess, going back, how you got started, where you got to where you are today, and just, what's going on right now with you.
Yeah, I actually grew up in an entrepreneurial family in the San Francisco Bay Area. In fact, we owned a real estate brokerage. And my parents were buying rentals and they were listing houses. I was a licensed agent, 1987, when 3 weeks after turning 18, all of us kids were sort of indoctrinated in the business. So I was 18. I was a licensed agent. I was paying for college by door knocking and cold calling and working on our rental properties and, painting and changing out doorknobs and all that good stuff. It was really interesting. I really didn't have a lot of interest in real estate. A lot of people when you're in a family business, sometimes we kind of want to go off on our own. That was right during the whole Silicon Valley explosion, the dot-com explosion. And so I went and got a computer software engineering degree from UC Davis. And I got recruited by one of the top technology consulting companies in the world, a company called Anderson Consulting. It's now called Accenture. I was one of two people that got recruited, and I was there for 5 years working. I worked Fortune 500 companies. Amazing experience, but it was 80-hour weeks. And one of the things I learned was swapping hours for money is really not for me. Mm-hmm. I decided after doing that, I'm going to go into a more cushy lifestyle into sales. And so I went down the enterprise software path of selling enterprise software. What that is selling $500,000 to $5 million software to executive management at some of the largest companies in the world. And it was interesting. I loved it, but it was not just 80-hour weeks. It was like the stress times 100, because most of the deals and most of your sales come in the last 3 to 5 days of the quarter. And if you don't hit your number, you're fired. It's really simple. And good news, I learned sales and I never got fired. I actually got promoted. There was one company that went from 46 people on the sales team down to 3, and I was one that was kept.
Wow.
And I learned a lot. I learned, and this is something I want to share as part of the journey. People buy and sell to people that they like, trust, and respect. And a lot of people in real estate is no different. I actually have a sales course in compression coaching that I've released that I give to all of our realestateinvestor.com members. I'll actually even share some of it for free with a link for people, because I think real estate, a lot of people in this business, they do what's called transaction selling. And I know, Tony, you would agree, most of the people that are really making money in this business, they're buying houses from sellers. Transaction selling is typically low ticket, where you come in and you're making a low ball offer, and it's all about making the offer. Solution selling is building a relationship with the seller, building trust, and creating a solution to their problem. And I have a method I call rapid doing that. And we can talk a little bit about that, but it's really, building a solution. Most people are competing on price. I've never competed on price. That's probably why I've had more success. I know guys like you. And so people buy from people that they like, trust, and respect. It's a relationship business. Focus on the solution and solving the seller's problem. Identify what the problem is. That's how we buy property at a discount. And so I love sales. And now the problem with sales is that you need to be you have to be talking to sellers. So how do you do that? You need marketing, right? And so many people get stuck of how to generate leads. And I think that's the easy thing. People should not have a lead problem. It really is focusing on how to convert those leads. And so I built realestateinvestor.com to actually solve a lot of it. We can solve the marketing problem primarily through direct mail and cold calling and plugging in other channels like what you show show people on how to do TV ads, but how to learn how to follow up and be continuously building that relationship with the seller. Because a lot of people, as you know, are focused on this concept of the motivated seller. I always tell people there's no such thing as the true motivated seller. People are not motivated yet. You have to talk with them. You have to build a relationship. I've had some of the best deals from people that have called me to be taken off their mailing list. Or I had an angry call, one of the angriest callers off of a postcard. I turned it into a $241,000 profit. And because you have to talk to people, and it's just a conversation. And so I love teaching that. The book that I'm releasing, the Freedom Code, has some sections in that of actually how to build a relationship. You can be who you are. A lot of people think that salespeople are born. They're actually made. Salespeople are great listeners, 75% of active listening, and then 25% of asking open-ended questions and telling relevant stories. And so I love sharing that and teaching people and coaching people through that, and then seeing them have lots of success in the business. So anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So you said you considered yourself, I think before we hit record, more of a sales guy, right? And you kind of talked about sales. But the business side of it to me is the most interesting, and we can continue with sales if you'd like and touch on that. But one thing you mentioned, just briefly, a couple things before I hit record. And one of them was the 5-10-3 method. So I'm interested in that because that to me was pretty cool. I'd like you to expand on that. So let's jump into the automation part of it. So it sounds like you only work about 3 hours a day, which is great. So tell us, I guess, how you went from working really hard in your businesses to now having the ability to only work 3 hours a day and still run really successful businesses.
Yeah, and that's a little bit of a misnomer. So the idea that I only work 3 hours is not a fact. I want to back up a little bit, because I think this is going to be really important for this concept that I have of a 5-10-3 rule. And I didn't invent it, by the way. In fact, King Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. None of us need to reinvent the wheel, especially in real estate. You just have to find what works and repeat it. And then once you actually see success, make it better as your own. So I find, I want to stand back that a lot of people, we call ourselves real estate investors. And we're not, Warren Buffett defines the real estate investor. It's somebody that has money. They buy a physical asset. It happens that asset class is real estate. It could be a single family house, it could be an apartment storage, and then they hold it and they take all the advantages that real estate come to offer. A lot of people are not necessarily real estate investors, they're real estate business owners. And that means maybe they're building a wholesaling business or a fix and flip business or a turnkey business, whatever it might be. And that's a business, and every business needs a CEO. It needs a CEO, it needs a discipline. And I always tell people, if you're a CEO doing $10 an hour work, you're going to have a $10 bank account. So the key is in learning how to leverage. It's not just leveraging other people's money, right? And leveraging, OPM, which we all know about. It's also leveraging other people's time, other people's experience, other people's resources. And so many people get stuck. So you and I chatted about this on my podcast, that it's really important for all of us as CEOs or business owners to know the value of our time. The time is the most important commodity. And I was a workaholic. Even coming from corporate America and learning the best practices and then starting my own business years ago, I found that I was actually doing everything, and it's not scalable. And I don't see anybody that actually has successful businesses, because it's not a model that makes any money. It's kind of like a pizza parlor. Imagine wanting to be a owner of a pizza restaurant and taking the orders, right, and then making the pizza and then putting it in the box and then getting in your car and driving it as the delivery boy. It's not a model that works. So you have to leverage people, and it's not that hard. And so one of the things like that I learned, and this came from coaching, was this principle that I was working I left corporate America, but then I remanifested what I knew. I started working 80-hour weeks, and I never felt like I could hire people that were accountable, right? I was always doing all the work. And so I'd hire VAs, I'd fire VAs. And it wasn't until I implemented this principle where, number one, instead of waking up and just getting and doing email and social media and doing whatever comes my way, I'm extremely deliberate with my time. So I wake up now at 5 a.m. I don't start my workday, which means I'm not accessible to anybody on the team until 10. That gives me 5 hours of personal time. And that 5 hours, I do some of the stuff at home. I make my wife coffee, I clean up the dishes and make sure I got a happy family. Mm-hmm. And then I journal, I do some meditation, I usually read some scripture, and I go work out. So I basically do all of the front end stuff, my first fruits on the front end of my day. And during that time, I come up with the one thing. What's the one thing? Now I've gotten good enough that I can do 2 or 3. But what's the one thing during those 3 hours as a CEO that I'm gonna move the marker in my business? And I do that during those 3 hours before I do anything else. I'm not on social media. I'm not looking at email. I'm actually looking at what's the one thing. And I do that during three hours of $500 to $5,000 an hour work. Now, since I'm doing that in 3 hours, I can't go do the work. So I have to be very deliberate as to how can I get it done by writing a check or giving it to somebody else on the team. And so the way that I process this is I'm usually, what's the outcome that I want? What outcome do I want? And then when can I get it done? So that's when I'm passing something over to the team. I'm not telling them if I want a sandwich, I don't tell them to go grab some bread, put some peanut butter and jelly on it and cut it and put it on, give them the instructions A to Z. I tell them I want a sandwich or I want lunch at 1 o'clock, and I let them figure it out. This is the outcome I want, and when can they get it to me? And then I hold them accountable to that. That's really changed my life. So at 5, 10, 3, I wake up at 5 o'clock. I start my day at 10. That gives me 5 hours. I'm extremely deliberate on what I do, journaling especially. and thinking about what's my one thing. Gary Keller from Keller Williams wrote a book called The One Thing. It's a really good book, very popular for real estate agents that are building large teams. And then the 3 hours. Now, my best time is really from about 11 o'clock until 2. That's my high horsepower, superpower time during the day. So I'm very focused and deliberate of building my business as a CEO. And then the rest of the time is usually interacting with the team or doing some of the small stuff. But I never finish up past 4:30 or 5 o'clock. And I run 3 businesses. Realestateinvestor.com, we have over 100 employees spread across the planet. I've got a small lending business I'm really passionate about. And I do a small house business, a small house flipping business. But that's in this current market, I'm not doing a ton of that, which is a little contrarian to what everybody else is doing. But 5, 10, 3.
No, I love that. I love that principle. And you know what's interesting is that, some people may think, man, I need to get up early. The saying that you should be the first one in the office and the last one out. And I think that's a big misnomer. And I think people are finally starting to understand that because there's so much burnout and so much, depression and all that kind of stuff. And even from people that are super successful, right? Because people get to the top, they're making a bunch of money and they're not happy. And it's because they're overworked. They're not, you mentioned the why earlier, their why is not intact. And if they took that principle that you just said, and even if what I said before was true, and you only worked 3 hours from 10 to 1 or 11 to 2, and you did no other work, you could probably get as much, if not more done, because in the morning, the first 5 hours, you're getting yourself mentally ready, you're journaling, you're doing all these things to where if you just jump in and you start your day, you're probably going to be doing a lot of things you don't need to be doing. But if you spend enough time, and for me, 10 is a little extreme, but I'll usually wake up between 4 and 5 and take until about 8 o'clock. So I take 3 to 4 hours in the morning to get my mind right with the meditation, all that kind of stuff. But you're going to figure out more what needs to be done as opposed to just most people who jump in and just start swinging for the fences, and you may be swinging the wrong way, right?
And the 10 o'clock, it doesn't mean I'm not starting what I'm doing. Like everybody that knows me, I love building businesses and investing in businesses. And so really the 10 o'clock is being off limits to other people. I don't want the torrential, group of crap coming my way, because to run a healthy business, you need a healthy CEO. And your mess is your message to your team. So if your business and your life is a mess, you're going to have the rest of your organization. So your mess is your message. And so that's why I'm deliberate and clarity of thought. And then, and at the end of the day, this is how it came to me. I had a CEO coach that I do recommend to everybody to have a CEO coach. Every professional has one in almost any organization. But if we look at guys like Bill Gates, I guess I'm not a huge fan of him these days, but Steve Jobs, Jack Welch, some of the patriarchs of business, we all have the same 24-hour day, right? But how do those guys get what they get done, right, when the rest of us can't? And I was skiing with company Intuit, right? Builds QuickBooks. They've got hundreds of thousands of employees. I was on a ski trip with the senior executive of human resources who hires all their executives. And he was telling me that almost all the executives that he knows, these are, C-level people, CEO, VP of sales, what have you. Most of them have the same principle because, right, you've got to be extremely deliberate with your time and then get really good at leveraging people. And I think I've seen more people come and go. And even in Collective Genius, I mean, it was almost everybody that is a workaholic and doing everything themselves. Their business and their profits show, you can see the result. It's the people that learn how to leverage $10 and $20 and $50 an hour resources so that frees us up as CEOs to go out and do the real money-making activities. And so that really changed my life. It also made a happier home, and I saw my bank account actually explode after that. The other thing I want to share is a lot of people are so focused on the how, the mechanics, right, of the automation and how do I flip a house. I think more importantly, to get really right is the why and the what, because a lot of people just, it's that hamster wheel. And I think really understand, why real estate and what kind of lifestyle you want, and being super clear as to what our personal vision looks like and where we want to go in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years. And a lot of people get trapped that they never get off because they haven't gotten clear on what it is that they want. So they see other people, they go to a mastermind or they go to a seminar and they're like, oh, that guy did 150 deals last year. I want to do 150 deals. And it's like, yeah, but he worked 90-hour weeks. He went through a divorce and his bank account pretty much, it doesn't have anything to show for it. So I focus, and when I'm coaching people, it's like, let's get really clear as to what kind of life you want, what you're looking for. And the other thing that's interesting is it's usually mostly passive income. That's not the $10 million in the bank account. It's really the 20 to 50,000 a month in passive income that we're all looking for. And so I share this because I had the same trap. I got in this business in 2004 for passive income, and I ended up getting on that hobbit, the hamster wheel. And it wasn't really until 2013 where I really stood back and said, and got some really good coaching as to what kind of life I wanted and what are the best practices around that. So if we're a business operator, you got to be a CEO. You got to leverage not just money, but other people's resources. You got to be relentless on time. And then you have to follow other people that actually on a model that works and repeat it. So like, for instance, TV ads. Why would, you've already mastered the model. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm going to go figure it out on my own. Like, no, just go and write a check, right? It's the return on investment. Marketing is a return on investment. There's also the opportunity cost. Like, if you can actually have something solved in 30 days, right, versus 6 months, think of the amount of money during the 6 months that you've lost that opportunity. So I think it's just, there's some fundamental principles. It's easy to get missed in this business, and I love sharing that. That's what the Freedom Code, the book, is about. I meant it as a disruptor for people that are a little bit stuck and how to get them unstuck.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. So tell us about the Freedom Code. So, I mean, I guess you kind of already mentioned that. If people want to get a hold of that Freedom Code, go ahead and give them the opportunity to go check out your book, The Freedom Code.
Yeah, it is not released just yet. I'm going to give everybody a phone number that you can text. So you can actually just text this phone number, and we'll get you on the early release. I'm going to give you a free copy of it. I also have some other gifts in there of lessons learned over the last 17 years in this business, and you're not going to be marketed to at all. It's just a way for us to know that you're on the early release, and I made this promise to all of you. So that number, you can just text. And actually, what I'd like you to do is, in the message, just put Tony, and so we know that it came from this podcast, and text the following number, 925-320-0575. So 925-320-0575, and put Tony. And then, the only thing people always ask, like, gosh, Gary, is there anything that you would want? I'll tell you what I really love. If you read the book and it has an impact in your life, I'd love to hear it. And post it on Facebook or message us direct. You can message me, Gary, at realestateinvestor.com, or that phone number. But I did not write the book. It's been on my bucket list for a decade. I think a lot of people have said, Gary, you have to share this story. And I love, and what fires me up is knowing that it's had an impact on others. So yeah, let me know, and it should be coming out. We'll give everybody a copy here in the coming weeks. We're in the final editing process, which is interesting, going through writing my first book.
Yeah, it's kind of like a rehab project. The first, 70 to 80% goes fairly quickly. And then that last 20%, just the final details just takes a lot of time, right?
Yeah, for sure. And we have a lot of resources over at realestateinvestor.com. We've done more direct mail marketing than anybody in the market. I think we've sent out over 85 million pieces of direct mail. We've done over 7 million outbound cold calls. I've got a large cold calling team. It's all done for you. And a software CRM that people seem to be loving in terms of what it's doing for the follow-up and the automation of their business. So a lot of resources over there. If you need any help, just let us know.
Good stuff. I'm going to touch on something you said, the why. A lot of people, when they say, I want to make a certain amount of money, I want to do this, I want to do that. It's really about the way it makes you feel, right? It's not, people think, oh man, when I have $1 million in the bank, or I have, $20,000, $30,000 in consistent passive income, man, it's going to be so amazing. And what it comes down to is if you're working 60 to 80 hours a week and you're not able to enjoy it, and your, marriage is falling apart and your health is falling apart, then it's like that money doesn't matter, right? So really making sure that you set yourself up for success by figuring out why you want that. And, just looking at what kind of lifestyle do you want to have. And I admire, you for creating that lifestyle of balance, because that's what I've done. And I know how hard that is. I mean, I think you and I are wired the same way, where we just want to put the gas to it. We want to create all these businesses. We want to, scale, and we want to, accomplish all these things. And it's really hard for someone like us to kind of throttle back and say, you know what, I don't need to work that hard, but I still want to accomplish a lot. And I got to figure out how to trust other people. I got to figure out how to delegate. I got to figure out how to work on the things that are most important. And I wrote down something that really stood out to me. A healthy business needs a healthy CEO. So if there's anything you took away from that, I think that right there to me was pretty powerful, because it took me a long time to realize that I didn't need to work so hard, and I didn't need to be the one stressing out. In fact, I read that, I can't remember if I read it in a book or if it was someone that said it, but they're like, really, people think that the business and the CEO needs to be the one grinding and working harder than anybody else, and then the supporting staff, needs to be kind of the more relaxed. It's the other way around, because if you're working on like hundreds of dollars of activities or thousands of dollars an hour activities, then you need to be in a mental capacity where you can make those decisions, be more relaxed. And then the people that are working for you don't necessarily need to be overworked. I'm not saying that, but they're the ones that need to be, putting the things together and working a little bit harder than you, because they don't have to make as big of decisions as you do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think on all the years that I've been doing this business, and all the masterminds and all the courses and coaching thousands of people, I've always seen a very consistent trend. And that is, almost everybody gets in this business for financial freedom and a new life, right? Of time to do whatever they want. And they get stuck. I call it the big lie. It's the same lie. I mean, there's lies around us, right? So that's why I go back to the why, and as opposed to the how. And the people that figured this out, and some people, they don't. I heard the latest statistic that 95% of the people that come into the real estate investing world fail within 5 years. And, I was actually speaking in front of 400 people this last year. And there were about 400 people in the room. And I said, the success rate is this small group right here. And how do you change it? And it's really getting clear on your why. And for instance, for me, I'll give you an example. I want $20,000. I wanted $20,000 a month. I know that $20,000 a month initially covers all my costs and all my vacations. And so focusing on $20,000 a month in passive income, mailbox money, right? That you don't have to do anything. I don't have to go and flip another house or anything. Really provides, that's the definition of wealthy. And a lot of us read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The light bulb went on. That's what we wanted. And then we ended up in some wholesaling flipping business. So getting super clear on your why, The next thing is, it's not just about the money. There's actually three components. There's wealth, there's the health, our health, and then there's relationships. And I think all of those have to be in balance. I've seen a lot of people that have got massively successful real estate businesses, and their health is, what was it? It was Rob Swanson. He shared something. He's like, he basically said, because he had a major health issue a few years ago, and it was the passive income that actually saved him from financial ruin. But he said, a poor man, or most people, have 1,000 wishes, right? But an unhealthy person just has one, and that's for their health. And so being really focused on, the balance, and also those relationships with your kids, and keeping those in balance. So I would encourage everybody to be really focused on the why and the passive income, as opposed to going out and doing the 100 to 300 deals, because I know a lot of people that say they've got 300 deals a year or 200 deals, but if you look at what's behind the curtain, it's a lot like the Wizard of Oz. So the why, right? Follow the best practice, be relentless at your time, be a CEO leader, and be crystal clear on that, and leverage a really good team. And it's not that hard. You get that right, you'll see massive success, and that is a best practice. And most of the people that are really surviving and thriving in this business have that going for them. So hopefully I've added some nuggets that will help. And that's all in the Freedom Code that I'd love to give everybody a free book if it resonates for you.
Yeah, good stuff. Like I said, Gary, I've known of you for a long time. I'm glad we could connect. It's an honor to have you on my podcast, and I'm glad that I could be on yours as well. So if you guys want that, book, text Tony to 925-320-0575. And when that book comes out, which by the time this airs, it may be out. So hopefully people will get a copy fairly quickly. So thanks again, Gary. I appreciate your time, and kudos to you for creating a lifestyle business and not just continuing down the path that I know I was on my first 10 years of business. And it sounds like you kind of were at some point. So once you make that transition to understanding how to leverage people, leverage your time, and create a real lifestyle business, that's where things change. So I hope you guys got a lot out of today's call. So thanks, Gary. Appreciate you. And thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you on the next show.
Awesome. See you, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Now go to www.remcommunity.com to connect with today's guest, see our high-level masterminds, and to get free resources. Don't forget to share this with a friend and leave us a 5-star review. We'll see you on the next episode.